Hello, welcome to Chapter 5, Competition, How to Diagnose It. Okay, this is Professor Nugent, and competition is probably one of the biggest areas where companies need to focus and concentrate strategy on directly. First thing we need to know is how competitive is your market? Um, how many competitors do you have? What are their objective, capabilities, financial condition? This is critical to understand. This is the foundation for future strategy. For example, if you have competitors that are very financially strong, they can withstand um, certain price competition, certain cuts in prices. They can outspend you in advertising and outlast you um, on severe price competition. Knowing how many competitors are at play is also important, so you can develop and investigate these other companies and see, what are they doing right? Where are their main threats? What products go head to head? Things of this nature. So the how of competition, basically what I started talking about, what tactics are they using? So if you're an industry, you want to know, um, do they use low price, high quality, enhanced features, customer service? If you look at the cell phone industry, some of the competitors will compete on lower prices, such as T-Mobile, such as so in the phone industry, you can have, like I was saying, you could have the low price providers, maybe like a Virgin Mobile. Even T-Mobile has a lower price. They have the right now, I think they're running $50 for unlimited text, talk, and data. Uh, T-Mobile also at one point was considered the best customer service in the cell phone industry. So they spent more money to keep call centers local and to keep uh, better tabs and management on customer service. Enhanced features, higher quality. All the cell phones companies try to compete on higher quality, better networks, G3, G4, things of this nature. You know, the how of competition, you can also look at, which I'll talk about here and there, say the sports club or the gym competition. So you could have in the area around Stony Brook, you could have a higher price competitor like New York Sports Club or LA Fitness, which has a higher monthly rates. Their membership rates are probably $50 or more a month, but they're also charging higher rates and can charge higher rates because they have bigger facilities with higher quality. Basketball courts, pool, racquetball, more equipment, more floor space, which would be enhanced features. So if you're going to compete, if you're going to have a higher price, you have to support that somehow and compete by giving the consumer more, which is obvious. There are lower price competition. You have a Bailey's, Bally's, which is sort of a mid-level, and then you have something like Planet Fitness for $10 a month. But what do you get? They're competing completely on price, but are they going after the same exact customer? How directly is the competition between LA Fitness and Planet Fitness? Is there a difference in customer service or customer experience in the two different gyms? So these are all things that if you're developing strategy for any of these local gyms, which are all actually most of them are regional or national chains as well, you have to understand what is your competition doing and how are you going to compete differently for success. So the symptoms of competition is what are the effects of all this enhanced competition? Um, you know, for for example, if there are too many gyms in the area, what's going to be the effect on membership at each of the gyms? If you're going to have, if Blockbuster is going to have to face competition from Redbox and Netflix, what does that mean for the local stores? How is that competition going to affect them? Well, obviously, we know the answer. It's going to force them to close a majority of their stores and eventually go into bankruptcy. So these are things that if Blockbuster had a better strategy, if they saw this competition, understood it better, understood the customer better, and could redesign their offering, they may have been more successful. Okay. All right. So the substitute conundrum. Let's talk about, before we move forward in the competition area, let's talk about substitute products. Now, a lot of people get confused over this. Um, it's not, when you think substitute product, you have to recognize it's not the same type of product. For example, Pepsi is not a substitute for Coke. However, bottled water is a substitute for Coke. It's not the same product. One is soda, one is bottled water, but it satisfies the same basic problem. I'm thirsty or I need something to drink. Um, a pen and a pencil are two substitute products. A car and a motorcycle. Uh, you know, they have to be different enough that they're different products, but the choosing of one product the other will take away a customer from you. So that's the main gist. So they're not quite the same products, but they have to fulfill the same need. And here we have also skateboard or bicycle, moped, um, any mode of transportation. One is a substitute for the other. Staple, paperclip, or rubber band. These are all products that can substitute for the other products and reduce demand. So this is not a big aspect of this chapter, or we're going to focus a lot of time on this. However, it's just important to understand that competition can come from other non-similar products that can take a toll on your business. Okay. All right, so let's go back to who, identifying the competitors. Um, the general rule here is the more competitors you have in your markets, the more competitive your market's going to be. Pretty simple. Um, but there is a unique value in understanding and identifying the competition, not just at a company to company level, but a product to product level, because companies don't always match up 100% to each other. So you may have companies that are conglomerates that sell lots of products, companies that may only compete with you on 50% of the products you sell, 10% of the products you sell. So a lot of times you want to look at it by product and who are your competitors on your different products. Now, of course, the competition landscape changes when you move into different uh, markets, international markets, different countries, different localities, different states. Things change. And if you've ever traveled around the country, you know that in some parts of the country there are no Dunkin' Donuts. And some parts of the country there are a changing landscape of fast food companies. Now, if you live in Long Island, there's a huge amount of fast food companies here, but we don't have all the fast food companies represented on Long Island. Companies such as Hardee's, Jack in the Box, Macaroni Grill, that closed the last location in Nassau County a few years ago. This is a very difficult area for fast food to survive and to do well in. And fast food uh, does well with a networking effect. For example, having multiple restaurants in one location is a benefit because you can advertise together. You could build customer loyalty in that area, and then people traveling between different locations will still use different stores, such as many Starbucks locations and things of that nature. Uh, so now your customers, they're going to view any competitive products as potential alternatives, or they may not really care what product they're using. I need mustard. I'm going to go to the store and get mustard. Now, that's why brand loyalty has become such a huge characteristic over the last 100 years, that you don't want someone just to go to the store and buy any brand that they can. You want them to be loyal to your brand, and you want to build up a resonance with the customer and consumers that your brand is attached to them. For example, a lot of people are either Coke or Pepsi people, and they like one or the other soda. And I think that is because of the heavy branding. They spend billions of dollars to brand you either Coke or Pepsi. You're being controlled. If you're the type of person who is, I'm Coke 100% and get the Pepsi out of my face and I won't even drink it. If I go to a restaurant and they only have Pepsi, I'll just have water. That's being a little narrow-minded. You're letting a company control you. For me, I of course I like Coke soda, very delicious, but I prefer Diet Pepsi, and I have no problem crossing over brands because I realize a lot of this brand devotion is fictitious, made up, psychological, repetitive effectiveness of their advertising. The only time I try to be loyal to a brand if they actually have distinctive benefits directly for me that the other brand doesn't have. So I'm more about the benefits of the product, not the brand of the product, because that is just letting companies brainwash consumers, which companies love, and it's a great strategy. But speaking from the consumer side of me, not the strategic corporate side, don't be brainwashed so easily by companies advertising to try to brand you to one car, one soda, one type of orange juice. Be a little bit more open-minded and only stick to a brand if it's the true benefits are there for you of the brand, not that the advertising has brainwashed you to believe that that's the brand for you. Okay, moving on. Uh, Competitor identification. So there are 5 steps to competitor identification. So initial market selections. You need to make a list of the markets in which your firm competes. They may just be local markets, state markets, international markets. And then you want to see, are you competing against a one product market or several products? You want to understand, are the competitors likely to be the same for all products that you've selected, or just a few? So it's best usually to choose one product to study. Otherwise, you're going to have to repeat these steps 3 and 4 as you move forward. Okay, step 3, one geographic market or several. So you want to identify the regions which the product is sold. So there may be a unique set of competitors in each region or different market that you're going to want to study. So usually a lot of this study may be done in a market level, not so much a global level, but it is possible. Okay, step 4, identify key product performance characteristics. Now this helps refine your customer identification because sometimes the product performance characteristics help to line up which products are competing against each other. Now, so you want to think about what does this product do for consumers, and you should specify the features that drive customer choice. Things like, does the customer prefer a one-stop shop, or they prefer to deal with multiple vendors? So you could kind of think of it like, does the consumer prefer to do all the shopping in a supermarket and have a supermarket that contains a bakery, a butcher, produce? Or do they prefer to go to individual markets, individual stores that specializes in selling meat or vegetables? I think that example isn't as relevant today as it was 20 years ago, because now we've clearly seen that the supermarkets are trying to be the one-stop shop. All right. How might the product be segmented? If you think about the attributes about the ease of use of the product, the learning curve, the warranties, durability, availability of complementary goods. If you want to think complementary goods, think of when the iPhone or iPad comes out. How many little gadgets are there to attach to your iPhone or case your iPhone in, or covers for the screens? A lot of times, when people look to buy something, maybe even such as a phone like an iPhone, they might gravitate to the fact that there's a lot of complementary goods. You could also think of the apps you can buy for the iPhone as a complementary good, and that's one of the really strong features of it. All right. What types of service contracts firms are offering? This is very powerful in the cell phone as well as in the gymnasium markets. How the product is distributed, how consumers can get a hold of it is, there are many different ways to distribute a product. It doesn't have to be just in the retail locations. It can be online. It could be mail order catalog. It could be a person-to-person sales like Avon. Does the brand matter? For some products, brand is very strong and matters a great deal, such as cigarettes. And for some products, brand isn't as high of a concern. And it depends on the consumers. Each consumer can feel differently. I know with supermarkets, a lot of people are indifferent with the brands, and they're happy to get certain things as a store brand, certain items. For some people, luckily for me, when I shop, since I don't care Coke or Pepsi, I'll get whichever one's on sale, and who's ever in my family will have to drink it. I don't care. When it comes to certain things like frozen vegetables, I'm a little bit more picky. I prefer Bird's Eye because I feel they have a higher quality, and especially the store. The store brand vegetables tend to be a bigger disappointment to me. So there, just some examples. Um, what also need to think about as a key product characteristic, how intimate the relationship is between the firm and the customers. Meaning, is there is the salesperson involved in the sale very important? Is it, for example, when you buy a car, sometimes knowing the car salesman and buying from him multiple times can be an important relationship. If they see that you're someone who's loyal and likely to buy from them multiple times, they may do your best not to disappoint you, being the fact that multiple cars are on the line. It could be a relationship where maybe it's the local health food store and you count on the the relationship of the sales manager in the store or the store clerk to give you ideas and information on the supplements and help. Just some examples, not terribly great examples, but nonetheless, what are the switching costs? Very important here. So, what are the switching costs for cigarettes? Almost nothing. It really doesn't cost you anything to switch from one brand to another. That's why they focus so heavily on branding you. And cigarettes are even worse than soda as far as brainwashing you to what cigarette is yours. Now, I'm not a smoker, but that's not to say I haven't smoked a cigarette before. I could never tell a difference between cigarettes unless it was maybe menthol. But I may have only smoked 5 cigarettes in my life, and they pretty much all tasted the same. Uh, but switching costs for me to switch from a PC-based computer to an Apple-based computer, uh, the Apple-based computer is a lot more expensive, and I have a lot of programs already purchased for the PC that I would have to repurchase for the Apple. So those are a good idea of switching costs. Uh, okay. Step 5, customer identification. So once you have these other 4 steps, now you can use the information in these other 4 steps to identify firms whose products deliver a comparable um, specifications on the key performance characteristics. These firms will constitute your market. So if you can identify the products from other companies that are going to compete with you, uh, that line up in your initial market, your product, your geographic area, your key product performance characteristics, then you have a highly refined, targeted competitor that you're aware of, and you know a great deal about their product, how they compete, and how they line up with you, which is critical to formulating your strategy later. Okay, market structure and size. There is this index here that the book talks about, which is really, I've never seen this anywhere other than how this book talks about it, and it's not a horrible idea. I just don't think too many companies actually use it, but what you basically do is you want to obtain the market share of your competitors. Then you want to square the share and add the squares together. So the idea is if you have if you have a high number, such as 1, then it's a monopoly. If you have a lower the number is, the more competition you have. So they consider anything under 25% to be destructive competition, and any market that's recently gone down by 5%. So the lower this number develops, so it's a way of mathematically carving up your markets, developing this percentage, and being able to say whether or not it's destructive competition. Um, I guess it's useful. I mean, if a company was going to use it, it would be just a more quantitative way of um, working that out. Okay, so let's talk about how firms compete. Now, the price of the product, of course, is going to be a key competition factor. Now, there are a lot of products that do compete on price, which I'm sure you know of. And there's this old adage that definitely my father was fond of saying is you get what you pay for, meaning that if you look for the cheapest price, you're going to get the cheapest product. In fact, nobody wants to use the word cheap, maybe inexpensive. Now, when it comes to the price, if it's a market where consumers are very focused on price, um, firms are going to have to rely on price reductions to get market share. Now, here I have written down the airline industry. Well, we know that when you look to buy an airline ticket, there's two major factors. One is the convenience. Who is flying to the airports that I need? And the other is, if there are multiple carriers, what's the price? And even if it's a $10 difference, you're going to go with the cheaper carrier. Now, for the airline industry, in a lot of industries, it's been what we call a slippery slope. The more you cut prices to get market share, the more your competitors are going to need to cut prices to get market share. And they're going to get to a point where it's going to be very hard to make a profit as a company. And you could see that in the airline industry, a lot of these companies, and American just recently went bankrupt because of this severe price competition. So unless you're a company like Southwest that is really focused on controlling costs and can offer low price at a profit, it's going to be difficult to compete. In the airline industry, they have non-price competition that we'll talk about in a minute. Um, but it's just common sense. If you reduce price, competitors will lower their prices. So, and generally a 1% reduction in price usually is going to cause a similar reduction in profit margins. So that's also a concern. So if you can't develop the additional demand that you're expecting, these price reductions may not be the best for your company. Now, non-price competition, competing in other ways, product enhancement, improved quality, features, customer service, building the brand. So if you think of airlines, like maybe an airline that has better seats, more comfortable seats, more leg room, TVs mounted in front of your seat so you can watch TV, movies, things of that nature. Planes are also trying to compete on food, in-flight drinks and service, Wi-Fi now, or phone calls that you can make during the flight, things of this nature. So if there's a way to not elicit a price war, but increase some feature or component of your product will make it more desirable, then you can get more market share. For example, in food, a lot of times it may just be, now 20% more. You see that a lot of packages. Same price, but 20% more. So we're not changing the price, but we may even be raising the price, but we're trying to show we're giving more for the same. And for some products, customer service can be enough to lure additional customers and keep them, retain them. Advertising, definitely your advertising sells products. The more you advertise, the more products you're going to sell, the more awareness you're going to build your brand. And in some cases, it makes sense to raise your price and advertise more rather than cut your price and advertise less. And these are just the basics of how firms compete, really common sense. Okay, so let's talk about price some more. 3 conditions for a price cut. If the company's exhausted all other avenues to increase demand, or which we call non-price competitive levers, if they've pulled all the levers and they have no other option, then that industry may be headed for price cuts. If they believe that the price reduction will be worth it, it will generate a huge amount of additional sales, and it's worth the risk of retaliation. And three, they're unconcerned about the future effects on the industry. Now, this is if a company has meets these three conditions, or a competitive market starts to meet these three conditions, we're going to have a price war. Our prices will certainly go down. Now, this is I know. Just go back for a second. I know with cigarettes in the 90s, one of the major cigarette companies dropped their price by $1.50. And then all the other companies followed suit, and they had a price war, and it was really devastating on profits. And eventually, the biggest of the Marlboro, the biggest of the companies, cut their prices so much that they really just took a while to recover from that price war. And the airline industry has this quite often, and even something like every once in a while, an industry like cereal could have it. So it does happen quite often. And as a consumer, though, not as a corporation side, talking for consumer, as consumers, we love this because it is, we're getting more for our money. So it's sort of the basis of a healthy competitive economy, is to have companies competing like this to keep prices as low as possible. So I don't see it from consumer side point. I don't see it as a bad thing. But if I own a company, it's a very bad thing. And I have to figure out a strategy to prevent this, or in some cases companies have moved into whole new areas just to get away from price competition, such as Intel, which moved away from memory chips into computer processors to avoid the destructive price competition in that area. Okay, so here are some symptoms of destructive competition. The index I was talking about before, we mentioned that if it's below 25%, and that shouldn't be 0.25, that should just be 25. Or it's dropped 5%. If firms rely on price reductions exclusively to get market share, if non-price competition combined with a large price elasticity of demand, so if we have a large industry price elasticity, meaning that as prices change, is such a big industry, like say soda drinkers, that changing the price is going to affect the demand greatly, then it's hard to, you may be in a symptom of destructive competition if the cost of these non-price competition is such that you can't pass them on to the consumer. Then that could actually be a contributor. Okay, number 4, customers are price sensitive, meaning that the lower price is going to drive a lot of customers to your product, and the higher price will drive a lot of customers away from your product. In some markets, customers aren't as price sensitive. Okay, so if we look at the Zoom simulation, we have, I'm going to call that up real quick. Okay, so here in the Zoom simulation, we can see that for the economy class car, the sales price is 25% of the importance factor. And that's similar to when we talk about price sensitivity. When it comes to economy class cars, the price is a big factor in whether or not the consumer is going to buy the car. So the higher price the economy class car is, the less units you'll sell. Now, if we go down to the luxury car, it's only 5% of the criteria, meaning that, even though the car has a higher price, it's not going to necessarily dampen demand as much as it would with the economy class car. And if you think about that, it kind of makes sense. If I was going to buy a luxury car, I don't want to get a luxury car that's affordable, because the whole point of getting a luxury car is to let people know, hey, I'm rich enough to afford this expensive car. Look how good I'm doing. That's sort of some of the mentality. So, and also, people feel that, what am I not getting by having such an affordable luxury car. How is it really a luxury car? So sometimes people want to pay more for a luxury car because in many cases you know you're getting much more for your money in these luxury cars in the number of features, um, luxury features that the car offers. So generally, a red flag goes up if the car's too affordable in the luxury area. At least that's kind of how I see it. So, there is, just tying back to the simulation a little bit. Now, customers, another symptom of destructive competition, customers are willing to switch loyalties even if they try a new product once. So, for example, if we're talking about um, a particular pizza or food or pencil, different type of pencil or pen, I mean, if you try the product once and you like it, c'est la vie to the old product. Who cares? Just move on. That's going to be a destructive environment. Um, a large firm enters an established market. Now that's going to be um, something that you definitely don't want to happen. For example, when Microsoft moved into the video game market with their Xbox, Sony and Nintendo were very, very not happy with that. In fact, um, immediately lowered their prices on their game consoles to try to squeeze Microsoft out. So anytime a large established company like a Microsoft or a Google move into an area where they can have an advantage over this because of the size of their firm, that's going to lead to destructive competition as other companies quickly move to try to discourage them from continuing this path into this new market. All right. Oops. Okay. So let's look at number 7. The industry has an excessive capacity. Marginal costs are well below average costs. Okay, so let's think about excessive capacity. Now, if I have a factory, and a classic example of this is say I have a memory chip factory, and the memory chip, the fab, which they call it, fabrication facility, costs billions of dollars and has a huge amount of fixed costs, interest on the loan to build the building, and the amount of money it takes to keep the building operating. So the fixed costs are so great that it often makes sense that if I have the capacity to make 100,000 chips, I'm better off making 100,000 chips and selling them at a lower price. In some cases, they'd be willing to sell them at cost just to cover their fixed costs. So this excessive capacity can push companies to want to lower prices. Say for example, in many, even in the auto industry, if they have a lot of excess capacity that's unutilized, it makes sense for these companies to advertise, cut prices, and try to, manufacture as many cars that their capacity can handle to cover their fixed costs. So capacity utilization is a big factor. I mean, if we go to the Zoom simulation again, in the production department, they do have in the version we're working with the sim, they do ask us about what is your capacity utilization when we look at our forecast in relationship to the amount of plants we have, to give you an idea that if you buy new production plants, you're spending $20 million, that's a fixed asset that comes with any of your fixed assets. If we look in the finance department, there is let's see. Let's see here. There are costs associated with your fixed assets. So I'm just looking for that. Okay, fixed costs. These fixed costs here of $8 million, is it going to be a percentage of your fixed assets? It looks like here, clearly, this is 8,990,000 is 10% of The total fixed assets is 89 million. So you're paying a 10% fixed cost on your fixed assets. Why is that? Well, fixed assets, they need maintenance, they have taxes, um, interests on the loans, different things that they need to, just like running a house. If you own a house and you pay it off, you're going to live there for free. There's a lot of fixed costs that you have to pay to live in that house. So this burden of this capacity has to be only way that thirst can be quenched is by running at full capacity and selling as many products as possible. And it's sometimes better to sell 1 million products with $1 profit each on each product than 10,000 moving 10,000 units with a profit of $5 in each unit, obviously. Okay. Secret pricing. Now let's go back to the gym example. How many times have you been shopping for a gym and you go around and you call the gym up? Oh yeah, I'm thinking about joining the gym. What's your price? Oh, we can't tell you the price on the phone. Oh no, you're going to have to come down here. You're going to fill out these forms, start a trial membership, and then we'll tell you what the price is. So these gyms, for a long time, they didn't want to advertise their prices outright, and they wanted to negotiate, and they wanted to have secret pricing because that helps them to keep higher prices and avoid price competition. Now that's changing somewhat with Planet Fitness is heavily advertising their prices because that's how they compete on their low prices. But for the other gyms, they don't want to out and out say or state what their prices are. They want to only tell you when you get there. So for many industries, the secret pricing is a way um, to is actually can lead to destructive competition if you don't exactly know what the other gyms are charging. You may undercut, fearing that the other gyms are charging less, but you can't find out unless you have some kind of corporate espionage to go over and see what they're charging. So it can lead. In some cases, the motivation is obvious. They're trying to maintain higher prices at the gym, but in some other places, the some other results of it, if they engage in this too heavily, it's going to wind up having gyms make special deals and price cuts to get new membership. No, because no one likes to feel like they paid more than anybody else. It could lead to problems in the future. Also, a symptom of destructive competition: large, lumpy transactions. Now, if you're a supplier of Target, Walmart, you're at the mercy of huge orders. You have maybe 20% of your sales go to Walmart. Now, there's going to be a lot of competition between different companies to get that 20% get that large order. So they're going to want to bid quite aggressively on that. Okay, there was a famous example a few years ago where Rubbermaid, and here's the Rubbermaid website, they had relied pretty heavily on, let's see, there's a video here, pretty heavily on Walmart to sell a good deal of their products. If you're looking for the inspiration to get... Okay, let's turn it off. They're, and you know what Rubbermaid is. They make all sorts of containers and garbage cans and things of that nature. So they relied very heavily to sell through Walmart. And Walmart went back to them and said, listen, we love all your products, but you have to cut the price you're selling to us by 10%. And that was a year where oil prices going up. Now, oil is used to make resin. Resin is used to make plastic. Plastic is what Rubbermaid uses to make their products. Contrary to what you may think, their products are not made out of rubber. They're made out of plastic. Now, they just couldn't do it. So they told Walmart, we just can't do it. So Walmart said, okay, fine. And they bought from somebody else. And Rubbermaid had to close several factories in the United States and lay off thousands of employees because that one transaction meant a huge amount of their business. Now, they since have patched it up somewhat with Walmart, but I think they learned a valuable lesson. If you have relying on one large customer, you're going to have to compete And Walmart took advantage of these lumpy transactions and negotiates very strictly, and to the point where Walmart actually knows exactly what your costs are, what your profit margins are, and they tell you this is how much you're going to make when you sell to us, because Walmart wants to be able to sell to their customers, you and I, when we go into Walmart, at the lowest price possible. Okay, complex pricing or potential for misreading or misjudgments. You make the pricing so complex, the customer doesn't know what exactly they're paying. A lot of times with automobile ads, you see the ad for this car and the price is great, or the lease is $199 a month. You go down to the auto dealership and it gets complex. Oh, well, your credit score, and that was only one vehicle in the lot at that price. And the cars we have these features which we have to charge you more for. So there's a few products where by the time you get involved, and cell phone companies are like this too. You go down, you want to get a cell phone, and then oh well, the taxes on the cell phone, and then this charge, and well, you're not going to have any text messages with it. You want me to increase that, and then you're never really even sure what your bill is going to be until you get your first bill. So um, that can not always work to their favor, though. If the prices are complex, it can lead the way for a competitor to clean up the pricing complexity and lower prices. Okay. Managers with pricing authority that also have market share objectives. So my example of this is Lucent. May not remember this company, but managers were able to change the price of the products to help sell the products. So if their goal is, and their objective is increasing market share, they're not focused on profits. So they're going to lower the prices as much as possible to meet their market share goals and get their bonuses. Now, Lucent was so aggressive in trying to compete with their products, and I think they made products that competed with like Cisco, information technology, telephone technology products, internet routers, maybe something like that. They were lending money to these big companies, and they were trying to charge the cheapest price possible so aggressively that they drove themselves, I believe, out of business and bankruptcy. I'm not 100% sure of that, but I don't think they're around anymore but I know definitely because of those tactics in the year 2000, that stock really burst. In fact, maybe I'll just go over the internet real quick and just double check. Is there a Lucent? Nope, there are. Lucent is not a company anymore based on their failings. And one of the problems is the managers were focused on market share and not profits, and they were cutting prices and creating profit problems for the company. Now, also in hand with 11 is managers focus on short-term results. So if you're really focused on just cutting the prices to get your results to meet the end of the quarter, that could be a big problem, and that could be lead to destructive pricing as competitors retaliate. So if you're only focused on the short term and not the long term aspects of your product, and the easiest way to get short term results is to cut prices, you're going to have disruptive competition, a destructive competition. Okay. Okay, so if you have a company where if a set of competitors where there is a huge difference in their production costs, say for example, some competitors, and you're looking at the market in the past, believe it or not, the United States used to make televisions, and the companies that centered the manufacturing in United States were quickly destroyed price-wise when the manufacturing of these TVs moved to Mexico and then Asia. So the lower-priced manufacturers, their production costs were so low that it was easy for them to lower prices and still make a profit. And the manufacturers, not so much of complete TVs, but certain TV components in the United States went out of business if they didn't quickly move overseas. Okay, so let's just talk about this price elasticity of demand. The book talks a lot about this on and off. This is just a, this is so if you haven't had economics or you don't know quite exactly what this means, um, it's going to measure the relationship to the degree of intensity between the changes in price and the changes in the quantities of or demand of goods and services to be sold. So it's a relationship to price. So say, for example, we want to cut prices by 10%. The quantity demanded increases by 20%. So the price elasticity, we would take the 10% increase divide by the 10% increase in demand divide by the 10% decrease in price, and we get a price elasticity of -2. So it's just a little formula on and calculating the factor. So if we have a negative price elasticity, that means decreasing the price will increase the demand. And the higher this number, the more price elasticity we have. Think of a elastic rubber band. The more the market will change. Some markets, when you drop the price, that there isn't that much of a change. In some markets, when you drop the price, there is a tremendous change. So you need to understand. That's what the book talks about this a lot. All right, so if you're the first to cut prices, you're going to enjoy the most market gains and market share from the price if your customers are very price sensitive. So now, if you're the first to get there and you cut prices, you better make sure that you have an advantage, either cost of production wise or distribution, where you can really enjoy that. And competitors are not going to follow you so quickly. But in the long run, many rivals are going to have to cut their prices, and they want because they want the customers to switch back. Now, a successful price cut is if you have a new product or a product that people are afraid to try or they're not sure about it, you cut the price temporarily so people try it, and then maybe the customers will stay with you and they won't switch back. Now, one way you can do that somewhat in a different format is coupons. So you can say, okay, I don't want to have a price war. I don't want to really state this as my general price. I don't want to alert the competition so quickly. Let me have some aggressive couponing to get more customers to try my product. And couponing has been, to me, it's always been a dull and frustrating, something I don't want to deal with. I feel like I'm cheap if I whip out a coupon, but I'm at a restaurant and I'm at Olive Garden. Here's my coupon to save $2 off the meal. That's gonna pretty much, date ended right there, Or you don't want to be with your family or your relatives and you're like, oh, I'm gonna pay with a coupon. It's just, however, if I'm alone, I could really care less. But for some reason, the whole culture of couponing is so developed and ingrained in us that there's even a TV show, a whole half an hour on people cutting coupons and going to the supermarket and saving lots of money. So it's definitely something that's powerful in our society, and all of us have used coupons. My favorite coupons are for, say, fast food restaurants where buy one get one free, or temporary price cut. Because no one really cares if you use a fast food coupon at a restaurant, at a fast food restaurant. Anyway, I just digressed there for a minute. So, however, if it's just a straight price cut, that's going to be a gamble, because if the other competitors follow through with their price cuts, if you don't want the consumers just to run back to the product they used to use. You don't want them to be like me, where I go to the supermarket and say, oh, Coke's on sale this week. That's what I'm drinking this week. Pepsi's on sale this week. 5 for $5. That's what I'm drinking this week. They don't want that type of customer. They hate me because I'm the customer willing to do that where many won't. Now, if you do lower your prices and you're the first to lower prices, you better make sure you have the capacity to fulfill the extra demand. And then this is one thing I just want to bring out with the Zoom simulation. I see people making this mistake all the time, where they garnish a huge amount of demand for their product by advertising effectively and building the product, in a very smart way, but then they can't capitalize on the demand. So let's hold on here. I'm going to go to the Zoom simulation. So on the charts page, at the bottom of the charts page, they have this chart called market potential versus actual sales. So it shows you here in the pink your actual sales, in the blue the market potential. So here your sales in the market was able to, you made enough, your actual sales matches your market potential, which means you have enough cars to sell. Now here, when we have the actual sales is 1688 in luxury cars, but the market potential for 1819. So think of an industry where you made your product so well and so attractive and so low price that actually you could have sold, say, 2,800 units, but you only built, say, 1,600 units. So that difference here, you spent all that money advertising and building demand, but you weren't able to satisfy the industry. Now, you weren't able to take advantage of that price cut. Now, so that could be a problem. It's also a problem not just with pricing, but I remember in the video game industry when there was one year that the PlayStation 3 came out. The first year the PlayStation 3 came out, and the Wii was out. They were sold out of the Wiis because they didn't have enough. The price of the Wii was the least expensive, and it was a very popular system, and they sold a huge amount of them, and they sold out. And then the same thing with the PlayStation 3. They had capacity problems. They couldn't make enough to sell them, and they had an extreme shortage of them. So the only thing available to purchase was the Xbox. So that Christmas, rather than get nothing, many kids got an Xbox even when they wanted something else because it was the only thing available. And it helped Microsoft take this is the Xbox 360, of course. All right. Okay, so excessive capacity. Now, like I was talking about before, if firms have a large overhead and fixed costs, and they also have excess capacity, they're going to want to have they're going to find it very beneficial to increase that capacity. So lowering prices, even below costs, is better for them than not selling anything at all. So if they could lower their price and they're even selling at a small loss, that still helps to cover their fixed costs. Better to sell 100 million memory chips at a small loss than a million memory chips at a profit. Because how does that make sense, Professor Nugent? What are you talking about? Can you explain that again? I'm confused. Okay, so if I sell a million memory chips and I make a $5 million profit, that's great, right? But I'm only covering a certain percentage of my fixed costs. So if my fixed costs are, say, $20 million, and I only made $1 million by selling a million chips, you can see that now I'm going to have a loss of 19 million after I pay for my fixed costs. However, if I sell 100 million chips and I take $1 million loss on the sale of those 100 million chips, but by selling those 100 million chips, the money I did make from selling the chips covers, the full amount of my fixed costs. I'm still going to only have $1 million loss, not a $19 million loss, because I'm able to, for each sale of the chip, able to cover my fixed costs. I still don't understand, Professor Nugent. Can you explain some more? See, since I'm asking the questions I think you're going to ask. All right, think of it this way. You own 10 houses. Now, what would be better? To rent one house and make, say you own 10 houses and the fixed costs of these houses, mortgage and interest and taxes and stuff, is $2,000 a house, and you have 10 houses that you want to rent out, and each house costs you $2,000 whether you rent it or not. Is it better to rent one apartment for $5,000 and make a $3,000 profit on that one apartment? So let's see, what profit will you really make? I have one apartment that makes $3,000 profit, and I have 9 that has a $2,000 loss per house, or $18,000 loss. So I'm losing money in the hole. I'm going to be losing at least $15,000 here. Would it be better to rent all 10 apartments for $1,900 a month, which means I'm only going to lose $1,000 a month rather than, the 15,000? So think of that example. So excess capacity makes companies desperate, makes people want to um, sell for lower price. And just think of the housing market in general, to stick with that example. There's so many, the more houses for sale, the quicker the prices go down. All right. So price leadership. One firm usually takes, I got a problem there, usually takes the industry market share. I'm not talking right here. Let me start over. So one firm is usually the industry leader in prices, and they're the ones who announce and set the prices, and the others follow. The rest just follow suit. So for example here, Kellogg cereal, when they raise their price, the others don't dare move their prices until Kellogg's does, and the rest will. Why? Because they're the strongest company. Philip Morris, when it comes to cigarettes, other companies have learned don't change your price until Philip Morris does. Follow their lead. Let them be the price leader. Now this isn't collusion. It's not announced. They're not talking to each other. But generally, over time, an industry learns, okay, if one company is the industry leader and they're going to retaliate and have the financial means to really retaliate and bury me if I lower prices, I'm going to have to wait for them to make the first move so as not to engage them in a price war. Now, if a firm pushes prices too high and the brand isn't strong enough, then you could lose some customers to your brand. So now price leadership isn't, as long as the companies don't talk to each other and collude, it's not violating antitrust laws, but it can be close if there's any contact or any, it has to be an unsaid, unspoken, unwritten set of rules here when they talk to price leadership. And a lot of industries have some sort of price leadership where they wait for the really big, dominant, strong player to change the pricing first before the little player, is going to do anything because they don't want to directly confront them in the price war. Okay. So let's just kind of sum this up. Now, next chapter 6, which I'm going to go over, is how to cure this price competition. So we have all these destructive symptoms of prices and destructive competition. How do we cure it? So we're going to be talking about that in round 6. So chapter 5 was just basically getting you to understand that you have to look at competition as the biggest threat to any company. And the only way, if you treat competition sort of like a problem or even an illness, you have to go in there and diagnose what exactly is the problem, what are the factors, who is involved, how are they competing, what are the symptoms of this competition, identify, the competitors, and then once you've gathered all the information about the product, the consumers, the competitors, you can start making a better plan. But before you can do that, you need to realize the biggest threat is a price war, a price competition. And what's going to trigger price competition, and what are some of the symptoms to this destructive price competition? So you can see it before it's happening. Either you know it and you can prevent it from occurring because you're aware of these symptoms, or you could see it starting to occur and you can take strategic action to change that. Okay, so that is a lecture for chapter 5. I hope you enjoyed it. And I look forward to talking to you guys once again for chapter 6. Goodbye.